Who are you calling hot-blooded, punk? Hi everybody, I'm Roger the Retro Gaming Puppet and this is Obscure Old Games. And you're still watching the Super Summer, an all summer long celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Super Nintendo launch here in North America. Now if you watched the last episode of Same Name Different Game, Joe talked about Super Double Dragon by Technos. And he mentioned that Technos is responsible for one of our other favorite series, the Kunio series. And well, that's pretty fitting because actually this year in North America, for the first time in a long time, we're getting not just one, but two new Kunio brawlers. It's true, Natsume is localizing a 2013 remake of Renegade for the 3DS coming to the West as River City Tokyo Rumble. And there's a kickstarted sequel to River City Ransom, River City Ransom Underground, from Canadian developer Konatus Creative, hitting in 2016 as well. But what's interesting about these is that both companies are acting like these are the first sequels to River City Ransom. And well, I guess if you're talking about English-speaking territories, that's technically true. In the 8 and 16-bit eras, there were a ton of games that just didn't come stateside. The one we'll be talking about today is the second belt-scrolling Kunio game on the Super Famicom, and Technos' final brawler before they went under. Shin Nekketsu Kouha Kunio, Tachi no Banka. Translated as New Hot-Blooded Punk Kunio, Our Elegy, and released on April 29, 1994, it seems like they knew this was their last go-round with everyone's favorite hot-blooded punk. At least, the last brawler. Strangely, development was farmed out to a company called Almaniac, who honestly didn't really do much else of note, mostly contract programming from the looks of things. Now this game is a direct sequel to the game we know as Renegade. The canon of Kunio games, as it were, is pretty fast and loose, so it's hard to say if this takes River City Ransom, aka Downtown Nekketsu Monogatari, into account, but it's not really important. There are no direct references to it, and it plays a lot more like Renegade anyways. Now I can hear people groaning, and I get it, that's okay. Renegade was the first ever belt-scrolling beat-em-up, and as such, the genre hadn't found its legs yet. Technos released Double Dragon the following year, and it's a considerable improvement. I like Renegade more than most, but I understand. It's definitely one of Kunio's weaker outings. But that doesn't matter. This game improves on it in literally every way. Like Renegade, each screen is a single area where you're free to move all about in both directions, but they don't scroll continuously forward like Double Dragon. Kunio and company brawl in a given room or area, then once everyone's had their faces punched in, they go through a door to a different room, rather than the normal brawler thing of being stopped by an arbitrary invisible wall every so often. But the stage progression and the characters are really where the similarities between this game and Renegade come to an end. First of all, this game is two-player simultaneous, which Renegade was not. Second, you learn more moves as the game advances, but not like NES Double Dragon. You just get new techniques at certain predetermined points. And third, there are 4 playable characters. Renegade only had the titular Renegade, Kunio himself, known as Mr. K in the Western version. And with those extra characters comes some of the game's best features. Each character has the same general moveset, but a variety of moves that are unique to them. Also, you can, and in fact, you have to switch between characters on the fly using the select button. In 2-player, each player gets one guy and one girl to control for most of the game. In single player, you can switch between all 4, but if any one of them dies, the game is over, so you have to keep an eye on all those life bars. The 4 playable characters are Kunio and Riki, of course, and their girlfriends in this installment, Misako and Kyoko. While the guys and the girls have similar moves to each other, they all have different things that differentiate them. Mostly their specials, which you use by pressing the block button and any other button. With all 4, block and jump will do a knee lift, but all the other combinations change things up. And different specials from the different characters are better or worse in certain fights, though my personal favorite overall is Riki's machine gun punch. It's very similar to the stone hands move from River City Ransom. Another interesting thing about this game is the amount of story. For a brawler of this vintage especially, it's got a surprisingly robust narrative arc, you know what I mean? And all the text is in Japanese, and that's okay because really you don't need to understand what's being said. The game is very linear, it's just go from one place to the next and beat everybody up. But if you really want to know what's being said, there is a translation patch. It's pretty easy to understand from the visuals though. Kunio and Riki are framed for a hit and run. They're jailed, and while jailed, things start going badly back at school. They decide to break out of jail, find out who framed them, and punch the faces of the guys causing trouble at school and with their girlfriends. Once they meet up with the girls, they go across Tokyo rearranging faces in a quest to clear their names and find out who did this to them. Minor spoilers, it was the Yakuza boss from the original Renegade. Which, I mean, who didn't see that coming? But again, window dressing. The fight is the thing. The depth of the fighting mechanics on display here is surprisingly robust, especially when taking on bosses who can be pretty tough. They require devising the right strategy with the right character to move on. If I'm being honest, the fighting system probably isn't quite as deep as Super Double Dragon, but it's still head and shoulders above most fighting systems of the day. And, oh yeah, you get to ride a motorcycle too. When making your way across Tokyo, in some moments our teenage heroes need wheels, so they use Kunio's motorcycle to get from place to place. In these segments, Bosozoku, that's Japanese biker gangs, will come after you, and you have to give them the boot right off their bikes. But be careful, they can do the same to you, and one touch of the wall means you'll crash and have to start the segment all over again. These segments aren't what I would call deep, but they do a good job of varying up the pace. Ultimately, this game is not going to turn you into a beat-em-up devotee if you're not one already, but hey, if you are, it's definitely worth checking out. It's one of the best brawlers on the Super NES, to be mentioned in the same breath as, well, Super Double Dragon, and Turtles in Time, and anything that Capcom put out in the system. So check it out. As it turns out, it's not too pricey, or you could check out the translated version via other means. And that's going to do it for me this episode. Thanks for watching. I'll be back once more during the Super Summer with 5 reasons to own a Super NES, so look forward to that. My name is Roger the Retro Gaming Puppet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Obscure Old Games.